Kees de Vos.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Ingrid. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, everyone. Apologies for doing this in English. I know it may be not your first language. Unfortunately, my French is a lot poorer than your English, so we should try it this way. I understand there are translations available if people want to pick them up. So thank you very much for E-CommerceOnetoOne to give us the opportunity to host this second plenary session of today. It will be about delivery. It will be about delivery at the heart of customer engagement and customer experience. I have the easy job. I will just do the introductions, and I'll be joined on stage by two colleagues of mine, Dibeehi from Forrester and Stephen Booth from Bleckmann. So why delivery? Why, as part of e-commerce, do we talk about delivery? It's not the most sexy subject to talk about, I grant you that. But actually, if you look at e-commerce, if you look at online retail, if you look at comparing that to traditional retail, it is exactly, that part of delivery that makes a big difference. If you look at the commercial model, traditional retail, the customer goes and drives to the store. They go and find the store. They find the items in the store, and then they drive back. They make their time available. They pay for that. And if they then have to return something, they do exactly the same trip again. In online retail, that model is completely on its head, and suddenly it becomes the retailer's job to actually, do that transportation of the goods from the store to the distribution center to that customer. And that suddenly brings in a significant cost for that retailer. That suddenly challenges, and is probably the main challenger for any economic model, any economic e-commerce model for an online retailer, is that delivery cost. And not only is it a big cost, it is also a big customer experience factor. Arguably, delivery is the most profound part of the customer experience that someone has as part of an end-to-end e-commerce shopping journey. We can talk about personalization, we can talk about technology, we can talk about single voice of the customer, we can talk about amazing search engines, amazing technology, etc. But if that item does not arrive at the time that the customer expects it to arrive, if that item arrives not at all, too late, broken, then all of that effort that has been taking place suddenly does not matter anymore. We all know, I think, the experience when an item arrives and we open that parcel, that feeling of like, it's here. We finally got it. Regardless if that's something that you've been waiting for a long time or it's something that you need for your job. That moment when that parcel arrives, that is the key and defining moment in your customer experience. That's why we want to talk to you today about delivery on an e-commerce conference. I will be joined, there we go. I will be joined on stage by two people that I'd like to introduce you now, and that will join me on stage, and we'll start speaking in a moment. It's Dibeehi from Forrester. If you want to join me on stage, Alpha, I will do a more extensive introduction in a moment. Alpha is the VP of Customer Experience at Forrester, and he will talk about the emotional side of customer engagement and customer experience and the role that delivery plays for him. Please give him a warm hand. And secondly, on stage, it's Steve Booth. Steve Booth is the Director of Carrier Management of Bleckmann. Many years of experience in the industry. And he will give us an insight of the journey, how do you really put a great customer experience around delivery, in place for a retailer using a delivery company. So we'll talk about the customer experience. We're talking about a customer that expects a lot, that doesn't have an awful lot of loyalty to any retailer that they shop with these days. The boundary of shifting from one retailer to the next is as low as it's ever been. And it's also that same customer that drives you as online retailers to change, drives you to adapt, and drives you to change and offer an online experience that allows them to buy from anywhere and deliver to anywhere at any time that they want to see. They are in the driving seat. They are in control. They're in control. And it's all about convenience. They want to buy and they want to receive goods at their demand, in their control. And that's something that you have to offer. They want to maybe have fast delivery, same-day delivery, next-day delivery. Maybe they want to see their delivery come in for free, and therefore they're happy to wait 3 to 5 days. They maybe don't want to have that item delivered to them. They maybe want to go and pick it up themselves at a store, at a locker, maybe at a third-party location. Who knows? But ultimately, it is that customer that is in control. And delivery plays a massive part of that end-to-end customer experience, as I said already. And it's not just about driving KPIs such as average order value, conversions, and visits. No, it's the whole customer experience that this delivery is part of. From the moment that you land on a product detail page, wouldn't it be good to see, for the consumer to understand that they can receive this item the same day or the next day, that they can actually pick up this item from a local store, that they can actually see that not only can I get it quickly, cheaply, I can also return it. So straight away you start driving things such as conversion into the checkout, making shipping options available to people. These are your options available. How do you want it, dear customer? But also post-sale. Customer service, for example. Where is my order? Can you tell me where my order is? Is it on time? Will it arrive on time? Can I maybe change, where I have it delivered to? And then, of course, also the return cycle. When an item is not really as you expect it to, give them the opportunity to return it quickly and easily. So the delivery in the customer experience goes throughout. And they have significant impact on your KPIs. The key KPIs that are already mentioned: average order value, conversion, visits, etc. 66% of consumers have chosen to shop with a particular retailer over another one because of better delivery options. Following a poor delivery experience, 45% of consumers say they will not shop with you again. And even worse than that, 40% of consumers, my slides have a life on their own today, apologies for that. 40% of consumers don't just hold that information to themselves. They will go on social media and they will broadcast that information, and they will basically relate your brand online to a bad experience, all through that delivery experience. Regardless of how good that online experience was, if that delivery experience is not 100%, they will shout about it. Average order value, we all use, or I hope you all use, promotional activities around delivery to lift your average order value, to lift your basket value. Spend 50 euros and you get free delivery. The impact of those kind of promotions is significant. But not only that, we see in our research that 40% of consumers are actually willing to pay extra for a perfect delivery. So I hope that gives you a good introduction and good bit of insight in what this consumer is thinking about delivery and how profound delivery is, how important it is in that customer experience. But it's not just about KPIs, it's not just about delivery, it's not just about the website user experience. If you want to deliver a great customer experience with really sound customer engagement baked in, it is an effort that actually comes from the entire organization. It is not just e-commerce, it is not just your customer service personnel, it is not just your logistics, it's an entire company's effort. To talk to you more about that effort, more about that role that delivery plays in the customer experience across your business, is Alpha Dibeehi. Alpha is a global expert in real customer engagement, real, total company customer experience. He's worked with some of the biggest brands globally, both in retail as well as in delivery, to shape their companies around customer experience. To tell you more about the role of delivery in the customer experience is Alpha Dibeehi. Give him a warm applause. Cheers.
Thanks for that. So I'm going to speak just a bit about the role of emotion in customer experience. And as we've heard, delivery is a major part of that experience. But you may not know the company that I represent. It's called Forrester. Just to let you know where this perspective comes from. We do all of these things. But if I put this into a nutshell, we work with companies who customers would probably say they offer service about like their competition. So it's a competitive market, and the customers are not necessarily differentiating between those customers, those companies. And as a result, the customers have difficulty choosing. And there are several ways of getting around that. One way is to compete on price. Another way is to find something else that allows you not to compete on price, to be able to charge a premium, to get customers to respond to your upsell and cross-sell offers, those sorts of things. In that situation where you're in a competitive market and what you're offering is kind of about like your competition from the point of view of your customers, that's where our company steps in. So it's kind of like next level. How do we take things to the next level? We work with, as we heard earlier, all kinds of companies, B2B, B2C, and all areas and aspects of the globe. And that's kind of just the foundation of where we're coming from today. I'm hoping to answer these questions. How much of delivery is efficiency? So obviously, you hear quite a lot when we talk about delivery in terms of time. But we kind of know the basic answer to the question if you ask your customers, which would you prefer to get this tomorrow or today? Next week, this week? We kind of know the answer to those questions. So that's not really the question. There must be something else, and that's part of this discussion. Is delivery in itself an experience, or is it only part of the experience? And I guess that kind of depends on the industry, and we'll get to that in a moment. And what's the difference between logistics and delivery experience? So these are the three questions I'm hoping to answer. I'm going to start off with the story of customer experience because I think this is a profound lesson. If you think about this, before that dotted line, 1900 to up to about 2010, that's where most of us got most of our experience. That's where we were trained, and that's a whole different kind of world. And while it says these things on the slide here, I want you to take away a very basic lesson from this. And everything that's to the left of that line, that's a world where businesses could go out and hire experts like yourselves. We go out and hire the best. You've been trained. You've been to the best schools. You have worked at the best companies. You have all this experience. We'll hire you, bring you back into our company because you're the best, put you on a team, and tell you, get in that room. And when you come out of that room, you tell us what to do, and that's how we will succeed. That's basically the world that we all grew up in. We were in control. The business is in control. We hired the right people. They tell us what to do. We follow it. We implement it. That's our path to success. When you cross that line into the age of the customer, it's a totally different world. The reason it's a totally different world is because we don't go out and hire customers. We don't bring them into the room. They don't necessarily tell us exactly what to do to succeed. Even when they tell us, they don't give us the full picture. And I'm going to tell you why that is the case. But this is a profound difference. And for businesses, we now have to start listening to customers. It's not just about telling customers, yelling at customers, doing other kinds of things with customers. It is about listening and creating this dialogue. In order to do this, there are 5 main imperatives that you can see here. The customer experience is an area that I'm particularly have expertise in, but of course, digital business is what we see happening in the world, and as a business, this is one that many people are tending to focus on. But in order to do that, you have to embrace this mobile mind shift. Now, when it says mobile mind shift, it does not say mobile tech shift, it says mobile mind shift. What we're talking about here is how consumers, customers, are changing. And that change means that they're expecting whatever it is that they are doing at any time, anywhere, any place. That shift is something businesses have to pay attention to. And as I said, we're not hiring customers. We just have to respond, have this dialogue with customers. We have to turn insights into action. So it's no longer good enough just to have insights with your customer insights team. You have to turn that into action. And then finally, you have to drive business growth with privacy. Given all of these things, Internet of Things, all this mobile mind shift, the digital business, all of that is collecting tons and tons of data. That data has to transform itself. And as you kind of see now, people are trying to monetize the data that we have about customers, even businesses which is kind of on the way out. They're trying to figure out a way to make things. I mean, this has been I think with something in the news recently. But these are the 5 imperatives that businesses have to work with. And basically, these are the areas that you might want to focus on. What this actually means, to simplify all of this, is to win in the age of the customer, you have to have an outside-in perspective. Before this, it was good enough to have an inside-out perspective. And the reason I'm showing this slide is because at the bottom, you see on one side customer value, on the other side company value. And I am saying to win in the age of the customer, you have to be focused on customer value. Now, you could take this to your CFO, and your CFO would say, that's great, but we are a business and we're here to make money. And that is absolutely true. And the reason that arrow is there is because the only way to win in a competitive market where customers make decisions, where customers decide to give you money or not, when they have that power in your business, the only way to win is to pay attention to the value that they get, because they're going to make the decision on whether they get the value or not. If you're not delivering that, then their decision is going to go elsewhere. So the way to win in the age of the customer is to focus and be outside in. And of course, we call this customer experience. This is the definition of customer experience, and there are 2 key points here that I would like for you to pay attention to. Those points are, it's how customers perceive their interactions with your organization. So what this does not say is what customers do with your organization. It does not say what your organization does with customers. It says how customers perceive what they do with your organization. So this perception is very important. Experience is in the heads of your customers. If your KPIs, if your metrics, if you're lean, if you're Six Sigma, if all your spreadsheet-based metrics say you're doing everything great, fantastic, you're on target with everything, but your customers walk away from whatever it is you've been doing and say it's not so great, which one do you think is most important? Which one is the customer going to use to make their decision the next time? It's not going to be your spreadsheets. And this is B2B, B2C, all of it. It's the perception of what's happening that makes the difference. The bottom line there, organization, the reason that's underlined is because this is about the whole organization. This is not, even if we're focused on delivery, this is not just about the logistics department. It's not just about the people who are sending the trucks or whatever to the customers. This is about the whole organization. In order for this experience to come to life, it has to be the whole organization. And I'm talking purchasing, legal, finance, security, the PAs, whoever. The whole organization has to deliver. And the best companies, if in your head, if I said to you, who do you think offers the best customer experience? Large corporations. Choose any of those, and I can guarantee you, if you had a list of companies and you said which of these are working closer to whole organization, the ones at the top of best customer experience would be that. So take Disney's of the world, even if you take Apple's of the world, and many others, you would find that they tend to work on this as a whole organization. So 2 points, perception and whole organization. Now, when we talk about that perception, it's formed along 3 dimensions. So if we're talking about delivery, we're saying any part of the experience forms along these 3 dimensions. So the perception that's in customer's head, there's 3 things this is through research at Forrester, we found that these 3 areas, broad areas, are the dimensions that create this perception. Effectiveness, an obvious one. You know, does a thing actually work? Does whatever the customer signed up for, do they actually get it? Is it real? That's the effectiveness. Do they get the real value from it? Ease. Ease is a simplicity concept. So most of you, or many of your businesses will be talking about this in so many terms. If you take those 2 together, I would say 95% of businesses in the world work on those in some form or fashion, because you will have your Six Sigma black belts, your lean, TQM, business process reengineering, and so on and so forth. They tend to work on those two together. Another key point here is when you talk to customers and you ask customers, what do you want from us? The answers you tend to get back will sound like, I want a pretty good product at a pretty good price and give it to me so I don't have to jump through hurdles to get it. So it's going to be an ease and effectiveness type answer. What's missing is this emotion piece, and that's why it's this dotted line, and in the picture is sort of beneath the water level. And typically the water is very muddy. But the interesting thing is, just like an iceberg, oftentimes, and that's why that blue box is double the size of ease and effectiveness, the most important part of an experience is that emotional part. Even though customers don't literally say, I want to have an emotional relationship with your business. In fact, they would probably say, I don't want to have that. That's the last thing I want. All I want is some product, get it to me quickly and at a pretty good price, 4P type stuff. But we know that when you add that emotional component to it, that's when the business gets the payoff. What is the payoff? You're in a competitive market. You're offering the same kind of service as the competition from the point of view of the customers. The customers start to differentiate you from the competition. That allows you to have the premium. The premium could be higher prices. The premium could be slower to market. The premium could be lots of things. But basically, the customers give you that credit. And that only happens when you add in the emotional piece. And I'm just going to emphasize this last point. Customer experience is not only about this emotional piece. It's about all three. If you only add the emotional piece and forget the other two, if you take that to the extreme, you become a scam artist. That's exactly what a scam artist does. They offer great emotional experience with nothing behind it. It's here's a great product, and you open the box, it's just rocks. So that's the emotion. We're talking customer experience, it's all three. The point of delivering all three is to get to customer value, which directly translates into company value. This is a great quote from Maya Angelou, and it's, people will forget what you said, they'll forget what you did, but they'll never forget how you made them feel. This is absolutely true. And I think if you are designers, if you're looking at things from this point of view, you should be thinking, at the end of this experience, even if we got it there on time, what's the feeling that we've left with this customer? And there's many of these instances. It's quite easy to feel this. I mean, it doesn't take much to understand that sometimes, even if you hit every KPI, the feeling is off. So here's kind of what it looks like when you do this. Just show of hands, how many of you have done journey mapping? No, one or two. Okay. So this is if you hear this term called journey mapping, here's a super high-level version of journey mapping. What we have is a customer, typically a persona, and then you see the squiggly line. That's the customer's perception of what they go through. Some of it is good, some of it is not so good. What makes good? Good, again, to drive this point home, is not you saying it's good, it's the customer saying it's good. So if they say it's not great, even if your KPIs say it's great, we're saying that's not great. So that squiggly line is what the customer feels and goes through. In order for that to happen, the customer has touched some touch points or the customer-facing bits of your organization, so that's the green bit. So the customer is probably, if they've run into things that they don't think they like, of course, they're going to complain about that customer-facing bit of the organization that they touched. But in order for that bit to happen, they've had policies, procedures that customer-facing bit of the organization that had to follow because they were created by finance, IT, human resources, and everything else on the back end. So when you do journey mapping, you do this customer-facing bit. What does the customer think? What did we do to touch that customer? How do we create that experience? And what did our organization, whole organization, do that forced our customer-facing people to have to respond in a certain kind of way? Did we not give them enough budget? Did we tell them not to do certain things? Did we force them to do other kinds of things? And so forth. So when you put all of this together, you can then start mapping out, if you want to fix any one of these points, one of these low points, you might say, and in matter of fact, the truth is, in customer experience work, when we find the points along the journey that are problematic, most of the time, it's like the 80-20 rule, most of the time, the root cause is in the blue. Oftentimes, people will work on the green. So if you have a hotspot kind of a thing, customers are complaining, let's go fix that, go to the call center, go to the service hub, go to whatever, the customer-facing bits, guys, get on this problem. That's kind of surface Band-Aid, really, you know, you're going to be perpetually putting out fires. Root cause, go to the blue. That's a general rule. So if you're talking customer experience and these guys are not involved, you already automatically have kind of a problem. What this sort of looks like is this. I talked about this question, what's the difference in logistics and delivery experience? Typically, logistics kind of looks at this from an inside-out point of view. How can we do this efficiently, best way? Logistics will deliver your KPIs, your metrics, guaranteed. You know, if you do that well, fantastic. More power to you, it's great. When you're working on customer experience, you start to look at this from the customer's point of view, just as we saw in the journey map. We start from the customer. Whatever the customer says is happening, customers, whatever they're saying is happening, then we do the diagnosis back in, and then we decide what we want to work on. Just because you have a problem in customer experience does not mean automatically you have to fix it. That becomes a strategic decision of the business. Do we have the money? Do we want to fix it? Does it work for us? Does it not work for us? But if you're going to work on customer experience to get the benefits, then at least you have to put that in front of the business to say, we should be changing, or here's some options for us. So that outside-in point of view is really the point of delivery experience. One of the ways of thinking about this question is delivery experience itself, or is it part of the larger experience? Well, that sort of depends on your company. If you're FedEx, it's clearly an experience by itself. If you are a retailer, maybe the customer isn't coming to you with the thought of, I want a delivery from that company. They're coming to you because they want whatever product it is. The delivery becomes part of a larger experience, a very important part. In a world that's becoming much more digital, in a sense, delivery is what's taking that from the virtual to the real. That's a very profound concept. Even if customers don't necessarily think of that, if you're buying things, you've got to somehow translate all that digital stuff into the real world. In Avatar, the movie, at some point they got into the trailer, and then there was another kind of world that was happening. In our world, delivery, in a sense, is actually that transition point. And we talk about all this virtual world. To some degree, the trust that we have in the virtual world in terms of e-commerce happens, in a sense, because of delivery, because that's the literal translation of all of that into something real for us. One of the ways to look at this, of course, is to map out all the various journeys that customers have. And the point I'm making here is, if you ask customers, what do you do with my business? Not what do we do with you, what do you do with my business? If it's a store, you're kind of a retailer, it would, it'd be the normal sounding things. I go to research, I go to look, window shop, I buy, I go to use the restroom. It could be all kinds of things, right? Each of those blue boxes is those things that customers would say. And then you could journey map, as we showed before, those bits. And delivery might fit in several places here, because delivery can mean several things, from returns to all kinds of things. So, you'd have to map that out. But once you had that mapped, then you could use this journey mapping to figure out if you might want to improve it or not. So if you had to ask the question, the 3 basic building blocks of CX, now, if you take any of those journeys, delivery being one of them, or delivery being the journey, there's 3 basic things you have to be able to answer. And this is a challenge to your businesses. I would say do this. Go back to your business and say, can we answer this question honestly? Number 1, what do our target customers expect? In order to answer that question, you have to be able to say who are target customers. Many businesses cannot actually say that. Number 2, when you answer this question, don't just give me the rational. By rational, I mean 4P, like the marketing 4P. Don't just give me that. What do our customers emotionally expect? And again, if you say, we've asked our customers and they've told us, I can guarantee you that answer is not the emotional answer. This is more, if you heard the term ethnographics or those sorts of things, observational type techniques, we're getting at something a little bit deeper, something that's You just have to, it's a latent, it's an underneath, it's an undercurrent of the experience. But that's what you'd want to have a sense of. Question number 2, what experience do our target customers actually get? Again, from the customer's point of view, what do they say they get? If you have an idea of this, then that would be great. This is not the complaints, this is not the compliments, this is just what does it feel like to have this experience. In this conference, we could say we've set up all kinds of things, here's the timings, here's the agenda, it all went according to plan. That's kind of our point of view. The other point of view is kind of the way you might discuss this conference with your work colleagues, all the stuff that you liked, all the stuff that you think, oh, they could have done that better, here's some other kinds of things. That's the kind of view that we're talking about here. So that perceived is very important. And finally, what experience do you intend to deliver? This is the strategic decision of the business. Our brand, we want it to be like this. Obviously, you got gaps. And the gaps here are between what customers expect and what they actually get, and what they actually get and what you want them to get. Customer experience management is about deciding what's the acceptable level. If your company wants to compete on price, those gaps can be like this. If your company does not want to compete on price, they start to get narrow. They will never be eliminated, but they will be narrower. More luxury brands, they start to have a kind of a very narrow sort of gap there. And finally, the point of all this, I think, is if you were working on this delivery, just remember that you're not just even designing experiences, I've described it. These are memories. And these memories are what customers rely on when they think about that next key decision point. But what I've discussed today helps you along the way of designing those memories.
Thank you very much, Alpha. Great. Thank you. Thank you. Great story, I think, and hopefully it shaped the view in your mind how we now can sort of like use delivery in that end-to-end customer experience and how that affects your entire organization. Somebody who has done this actually in real life is Stephen Booth. Stephen has got well over 20 years experience in the express delivery market and now works in a company called Bleckmann, specialist fashion and lifestyle logistics business, where he's actually helped Bleckmann get themselves into a position where they are helping retailers deliver that real end-to-end customer experience and use delivery to enhance that experience. So to share that story with you, give Steve a very warm welcome to the stage.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Good afternoon. Yes, that works. That's a good start. I'm probably going to repeat some of what Alpha's just said because it was so important, and also picking up on some things that were said earlier today. Can I just check the pronunciation? The company name is Bleckmann. It's an E. I'll get shot by the people that pay me if I don't correct that mistake. Right. As Kees has just said, I've been in transport now for about 20 years. My last role with a large corporation was the global commercial director. So I have a reasonable understanding of what happens in that market. About 18 months ago, I left the industry, selling it, and I switched. I went from poacher to gamekeeper, and now I'm buying the service on behalf of retailers. And it gives me a very different insight into how the industry works. Now, what I'm going to do now is talk you through a journey that we've been on with a range of customers and explain some of the positives, explain some of our learnings from it. I think as an audience, you're going to see things that you recognize, and hopefully you can take some additional things away. I could talk for the next 12 hours on this subject and more. I keep seeing on here that delivery isn't sexy. That's running Marie on here on the Twitter. If you talk to anybody in the industry and you go and talk to many of the transport operators, sexy is a different word, but you're going to find many people incredibly passionate about delivering physically a customer experience. But again, the challenge is, as Alpha's just said, with the consumers, the rapidly changing market, mean that these individuals in these companies are really struggling to keep up with the consumer and your desire. Right. Now, taking the strap line on top of there, delivering choice should be easier than delivering the package. If you think of, two of the big branded global integrators, each have 400,000 staff. And if you took the big 4 integrators globally, they employ over 1 million people. You would think that delivering choice on a website was so much easier than delivering the package. But what we're increasingly seeing is that providing your consumer choice is more difficult than people think. We've worked with multiple retailers and fashion houses, and we've sat with them and said, right, okay, one size fits all, brown, yellow, what colour? How does this align with your unique proposition? Again, relating it to what's just been discussed. If you're a web auction house reseller whose proposition is to give your customer the lowest possible price, do you need to pay for an express next day service? Does your customer want to pay for that? Whether they pay for it directly or through the price, it's probably inappropriate. If you're a high-end fashion brand that has charged a substantial amount of money to deliver something, you probably want it delivered the following day by a brand similar to FedEx that was mentioned, because it reinforces and supports your proposition. So what we're seeing from the customers is one size doesn't fit all. What we've seen on the second bullet point is there are multiple local carriers out there in different markets. So again, many organisations in this room, depending on how you buy your services, probably for internal simplicity, buy all of your European services from one branded operation. They're not the best in every market. There's no individual European player that is the best in every market. And there are multiple local carriers that are recognised by your consumers in those markets as being better. How can you use them? How can you enhance your own proposition? Cost of service and service performance. All the transport divisions I know constantly go through these in cycles. This year in the budget, times are difficult, cost of service is the priority. Second year, okay, we've got a little bit more money in the budget, now we're on to service performance. But actually the two should be run together, and they're continual, they last forever. And delivering the two sustainably, which is what I spend a lot of time doing, is the actual secret, because that supports the brand, it supports your proposition, and it supports the repeat buying of your customers. They don't want a good experience this week, and then if 3 weeks later you've changed carriers, you've done something else, and they get a bad experience. They need consistency from you. That's what they expect. And above all, proactive transport management. Many of the transport operators you may work with are built in a very traditional way. They tend to be very reactive. There are a few that are proactive, but your consumer is expecting you to be proactive. They're expecting you to tell them when there's a service problem. They don't expect to come back to you, say, can you tell me where my package is? It was supposed to be here 3 days ago. They expect you to have told them. So we started with that as a list of ambitions. And again, you would think, well, they're hygiene factors. That's what we do anyway. But actually, when we've stated them as ambitions with many companies, they've said, if we can get to that place, we feel much better. That's a good place to be. Let's try get there. Now, this is a multi-departmental discussion. Emotions run high. I listened to the presentations, and the thought that comes to mind is, who would be in a transport team? The only calls you ever get, delivery failed. Where's my package? Nobody ever rings you and says, well, actually, last week 99% were delivered on time. People only ever ring you about the 1%. And most of those say, it's not our responsibility, it's the transport team's responsibility. But you start with things like, did the marketing team design the website correctly? Is the address validation solution in the website correct? Did you give your transport team the right information? All of those individual factors feed into the perfect outcome, but rarely do organisations talk about it like that. I've listened all day to the use of the word customer. one of the challenges we had in the discussions with customers is who actually is the customer? If you're a 3PL, your customer is the retailer or the fashion brand. If you're a line haul operator or final mile delivery, you perceive your customer to be the fashion or the 3PL. We actually sat groups of people down in rooms and said, there's only one customer here, and that is the consumer. That's the one customer you all need to singularly focus on. And we changed people's terminology and mindsets and say, work together now and think of the consumer. You'd be amazed how that changed the conversation, and many of the silos that exist in the different business models were dropped, and people started to talk about the perfect experience for the consumer. Now, yeah, we didn't catch that spelling error. Express and standard have been traditionally used as service definitions for many, many years. Express means next day, standard may mean 1, 2, 5, 7 days, depends what you're selling, where you're selling it to. But if you look in the diagram below, I saw the slides even in French, I could understand that much French. Your consumers don't talk about express or standard, they talk about things like click and collect. They talk about delivered on a Saturday, they talk about delivered to home, delivered to work. So in going through these different diagrams and seeing how the supply chain was dramatically changing, we changed the terminology with the groups developing the solutions, and we started to make them more descriptive. Now, if you remember when I showed the multi-departmental diagram, by changing the definition and making it more descriptive, it was so much easier to share with all the different people. If you're in the marketing department, you know what click and collect, store to consumer, direct to home is. You're building your own internal propositions and value based on these things. Now, all of those services get delivered fast or slow. But again, get the terminology right. Focus on what your customer, your consumer actually wants to talk about. There's an interesting way to look at the word standard. I don't know anybody that likes selling standard, because it's not a very exciting, that's really not a sexy term. And I don't know any customer that really wants to buy standard. They all want, as Kees said earlier, to open this package, they want to feel special. Even if it took 3 days to get there, they still want to feel special. Nobody wants to buy standard. So again, in this process, we've very much redesigned how we're looking at the market. You know, we've sat with our customers and we've had some very difficult conversations with customers as we've gone through this process and asked them some of the questions that have been asked in earlier presentations. What are you actually trying to achieve? And when you ask that question in relation to this, many people struggle. What people have done historically is very easy. If you're a European distribution, you're running a DC in the Benelux or Germany, then just buying a one-stop shop solution off a single integrator, the only thing you need to do is negotiate an annual contract and decide what color you want. You can go brown, or you can go yellow, or you can go orange, which will soon change color. I don't know what color La Poste is as it's redeveloping and reinventing itself. But again, you just pick the color, negotiate the agreement. Around this philosophy, people are beginning to see the prices are rising, the number of surcharges coming into the market is increasing, and many of these suppliers are possibly not the best suppliers in the market you want to be in. All right? And they're not well equipped to deliver your consumer the choices you want to deliver them. These carriers individually, and I know many of them, and I'm friends with many of them, so I'm not criticizing them, but it's actually like talking to multiple different companies. More and more carriers, account managers come in, time spent on the meetings gets longer and longer, more talk, less delivery. And when you look at the European market, how many of the big carriers now deliver as a standard on Saturday? I can now deliver through a range of different carriers. Germany, standard delivery. France, standard delivery. Netherlands, standard delivery. UK, standard delivery, all Saturday. I can deliver into UK and Netherlands on a Sunday even for a nominal additional charge. I haven't even got to putting these in front of the customer yet as a choice. What I'm trying to do is get different teams aligned and suppliers aligned so that I can create that choice. So then we step into the slide that terrifies most people. Metapack, this is an extraction also from a Metapack slide that's been used before because I borrowed it off Bruce down in the front here. This is just a snapshot of all the different carriers that you have access to deliver goods around Europe. These are not all B2C, these are B2C, these are retail, these are wholesale. Now, if you speak to most companies, they'll go, okay, we understand the concept, it's great, really, really do understand it. But how are we expected to manage this? It's impossible. It used to be impossible, it's not now. There is a link with Metapack and other people that provide similar sorts of software where technology now can bring this software into your system and you can build the logic and rules that enable you to send a shipment from here in France to Norway through a range of different solutions and deliver it by the partner who you think can give your customer the best service. Technically, that's available today. There's a bit of work in the background to set it all up, construct it, arrange contracts, and select the best carrier. But actually, it's perfectly possible. It's no longer a pipe dream. So, in a very simple way, we've been doing this with a range of American fashion brands. We work with companies like Abercrombie & Fitch and Stella & Dart and Groupon and a whole long list of customers. But what we've been doing is stepping through with them in a very slow, simple, phased way from where we are today, which traditionally has been one colour suits all, one-stop shop, to a much more dynamic multi-carrier solution. Yes, so all sounds good. And yes, we can put the teams together, and yes, we can do everything that you think we can do, but not everybody is always on board. We had some excellent conversations in the early days with various carriers, everybody incredibly positive. Yes, we want to do it. I come back to the word sexy. You know, people really, really excited about the ability to change the current status quo and do something better. We had Metapack in the wings. We'd gone through multiple conversations. We knew exactly what we wanted to do. But then we hit on our own problem. Okay, our current computer system, our warehouse management system, needed to be completely upgraded to be able to make the switch. But again, after many conversations with our own IT department and others, we got them to see the value. They understood what it was. And what initially seemed like a huge hurdle actually became relatively simple. So I think it took about 3 months, and we delivered on schedule. Now for our customers, as I said before, within that circle, we're basically delivering standard shipments, origin, Benelux, everywhere in red within 48 hours. We're delivering standard to the countries I've just said on a Saturday. And what's going to sound unbelievable is we're actually doing that for less cost than we did before. So we've got new service providers in. We've got a lower cost base for most of our customers. Their customers, the consumer, is getting a very good, reliable service. And if I use Saturdays, for example, again, I don't know the people in the room. If you're running a distribution warehouse, then what matters in e-commerce is when the orders come through, and most of them come through late afternoon, early evening. The traditional way of doing fulfillment from a warehouse is you pick, pack, the carrier's line haul will leave your building at 19:30 hours. How many orders that go online that day hit that truck? I suggest very few. So in your own process, you've automatically got another 24 hours delay until the following evening. Now, if you don't deliver on Saturday, that delay on orders that might come in on a Thursday night, that won't even depart the facility till Thursday, won't get delivered till at least Monday or Tuesday. So you can imagine where the added benefit of like a Saturday delivery comes in. You gain not 1 day, you possibly gain 2 or 3 days, depending on how your operation's built. All right? I write tier 3 there. In this stage, which has been quite radical, very agile, we've just delivered in 9 months something that most people thought would take us 2 years. After we'd done it, we sat with some of our main retailers, and they quietly said, Stephen and team, we were a few weeks late. Let's admit it, we were a few weeks late. But actually, they said, that's not an issue. We didn't even think you'd deliver it the same year. Now, how we delivered it was A, sticking with tier 1 brands that have got the capability to support us. We had very strong relationships. I go back to the whole teamwork, the multi-departmental slide. Everybody knew what we were trying to achieve. Everybody was on board. Transport operations, line haul operations, software providers, in-house teams, everybody was singly aligned on delivering that experience and solution for the consumer. Returns are the next thing that we're focusing on. When I picked this up last year, we sat there with a list of various parcel shop operators, and we conceptually had access to about 30,000 parcel shops. We had an ambition to take it to 50,000. We now have access through our own organisation, networks, contacts, the system to over 100,000 parcel shops. So you can imagine how we can use this with our customers. We can do hosted return sites, we can do the traditional label in the box. There's a whole range of different ways to do it. But what's important is your consumer has a low-cost, easy-to-use return solution. Now, again, I've got lots of stories and I'm trying to keep them short tonight. You come and find me in the bar later, I can talk all night. One of our customers made a major change over 4 weeks. Historically, all of their returns that came back to the central DC was done through a branded carrier collect from home service. So you can imagine, these are not small numbers. This is over 3,000 returns a week would come back through a collect from home service. In 4 weeks, we transformed that to a consumer delivered to Pudo, and it gets routed back that way. Their customer service team said, we've had a few phone calls. We've had a few consumers ring up and complain they can't get a collect from home service. But what was interesting is the same customer service team said, before the change, we used to get phone calls from consumers saying, why can't I deliver it to a parcel shop? So they looked at the numbers were decimal points of a percent, and they said, well, actually, we've just got different customers, perception of different experiences. It's not a big issue. But literally over 4 weeks, we changed over 3,000 returns coming back via collect to deliver almost seamlessly. Now, have I got time? How's the time going? 1 minute, right, quick. We have a unique situation with Hermes and DHL Packet in Germany where we can use a hybrid label. This shows how your consumers vote with their feet. The outbound dispatch note, instructions, everything said DHL Packet. The return label in the box was understood as a market practice hybrid label that the consumers knew they could put into a Hermes shop. We made the change, we did not communicate Hermes. Within 5 days, Hermes were ringing me saying, Stephen, you've got 1,000 shipments here, you need to come and collect. Well, how have they come to you? They've come to you because your consumers know what they're doing. And this is now what's happening in the market. A lot of this is becoming commoditized. You need to get with it. You need to give the consumer what they expect to see. And to be honest, they know what they're doing. They know what they want from you. The challenge is getting to that point. Again, I won't touch on this because I've got 30 seconds then. In returns, if you talk around Europe, most people will talk about returns doing 10 to 14 days. The reality is, don't go into that detail. We now do returns via a series of providers from the UK back to the Benelux. And depending on where the return starts, if anybody's UK geography is good, if you put it in a parcel shop in Aberdeen on a Saturday morning, it might take 6 days to work it back to the Netherlands. If you're in the Midlands in the UK and you put it in a parcel shop on a Monday, it will be back in the Netherlands by Thursday. I have similar charts that show what we've managed to achieve. Germany to the Netherlands is averaging about 2.5 days between consumer, remember consumer, parcel shop, through to DC. The market we're working in now is very sexy, a lot of passionate people, and much more can be done than was done before. We're done. Good.
Great stuff. Thank you. Brilliant. I will fill in your slides, Steve. Steve is just going to show his reporting capabilities. That is not just, going back to Alpha's point, that is not just about that experience, that emotion, but you also internally can report on it. So I know we started a bit later. We've run out of time. I'm also very conscious that we are standing between you and the bar. It's always a tricky place to find yourself. So rather than doing the half-an-hour Q&A that we had planned for you, one crucial question for both of you, gentlemen. What is the most important part of a customer experience related to delivery? How do you believe you can exceed expectations for your customers? Steve, maybe you want to start.
I liked the perception statement earlier. I've sat with numerous teams who say, we deliver 98%. But then you talk with some of the consumers, and there's a variety of issues, which means their feeling, their perception is that it's not 98%. So I think the teams need to be incredibly open, need to be very receptive to constructive criticism, and then as an organisation, you just design a plan. What we've done with many there is said, right, factually, where are we now? And what are the steps to get to where we want to be? Almost nobody can do that full jump. But if you define the steps, you communicate it, and include the customers and recognise perception is so valuable, then you'll get there.
Excellent. Thank you, Steve. Alpha.
Yes, I think for me, it's those three questions I talked about. The three questions were, at the bottom, I had what experience do you want to deliver? And if you think about that in terms of having an emotional component as well as effectiveness and ease component, it would be the difference of of course we want to get the delivery there quickly, on time, but do you want this to feel fun, safe, conservative, wild, French, Irish, whatever the concept is? If you have that as a basis, then you can start measuring what you're actually doing and see if you're getting feedback from customers that's similar to that. So that's the first question. Second question is, you have to at least understand what it feels like from the customer's point of view to have the experience. And most businesses really don't have this. They can look at a complaint, possibly. They maybe see something where the customer's written a compliment letter, but they don't know what it's like waiting for the package. They don't know, and these give you opportunities to do other things. And the third question at the top was, what is it that your customers expect? And again, this is more than just asking customers. We're about, we offer delivery service. What do you want from that? We kind of know the answer to that. This is more about, you have to dig deeper, and there are more advanced techniques and ethnographic techniques, really, that starts to give you some clues as to what would create these hooks for customers. And by the way, those hooks should tie in to what you intend the experience to be. So those three questions really are crucial, and I would say give you the clues as to what's important in the customer experience.
Great stuff. Thank you very much. I'd like to a warm applause for Steve and Alpha. Two gentlemen with great experience and hopefully giving you some great insight on how to really fundamentally change your customer experience around the delivery method, the delivery choices that you offer your consumers. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to thank you very much for your time, for staying with us, for listening and taking part in this session. Hopefully, we're giving you a bit of insight on how you can use delivery, how to make it sexy, and how to really define your consumer experience, get that emotion in the shopping experience through delivery. If you would like a copy of your slides, please drop by our booth. We're in D3. We're here today, tomorrow. Obviously, we'll be all around tonight as well over a few drinks. Thank you very much for your time, and hopefully we can connect over the rest of the conference. Thank you very much.